Hello. So today we're going to start Meet Kirsten. It's the first book in her series, and it was written by Janet Shaw. Illustrations are by Renee Graef. So we're going to see this is her family. That's Kirsten. That's her family. Her father, Lars. Her mom and Peter. So this is Kirsten. She's a 9-year-old who moves with her family to a no home in the American frontier in 1854. And then this is Marta, her best friend, on a long trip from Sweden to Minnesota. So Sweden is a country over in Europe. When you come back, we can look at it on a map. So then here's Anna, Aunt Inger, Lisbeth, and Uncle Olaf. And this is Kirsten's American relatives. They live on a new farm in Minnesota where they make the Larson family feel at home. So they're already in America. Chapter 1, America. That's America, Kirsten said happily. She stood at the ship's railing with her friend Marta and pointed to the green strip of land beyond the waves. Overhead, the tall sails creaked in the wind. Marta shaded her eyes and pressed against the railing as though she would make the eagles sail faster. I can't wait to walk on land again, she said, and shivered. Kirsten touched her friend's thin arm. Are you cold? She asked. Let's go sit where the wind isn't so strong. She tucked her rag doll, Sorry, into her shawl and walked to a coil of rope that was as high as a barrel. Then she hitched up her skirt and climbed into a space just big enough for 2 girls to sit knee to knee and forehead to forehead. Marta crawled in after her. It was warmer here in the coiled rope. The wind still whistled overhead. Kirsten took her handkerchief from her pocket and made a cape for Sorry. Marta's doll wore her apron like a shawl. Soon we'll be on land again, Marta told her doll. Don't worry about the wind. Kirsten pulled a piece of hard, dry bread from her apron pocket and broke it in 2. She and Marta fed their dolls before they chewed the bread themselves. What's the very first thing you want to do in America? Kirsten asked. I want to pick an apple, Marta said dreamily. There are apples everywhere in America. Apples? When Kirsten said the word, she could almost taste the crisp, delicious fruit. We'll pick cherries, too, she said. And we'll get fresh bread, Marta added. I think we'll be there by tonight, don't you? Not if it storms again, Kirsten answered. She peered up at the darkening clouds and pulled her shawl more closely around her shoulders. Above her head, she saw the sailors crawling into the rigging to adjust the sails. Then she heard Papa's voice. Kirsten, where are you? He called. Kirsten stood and shouted, Here I am, Papa. Strands of blonde hair pulled loose from her braids and whipped across her cheeks when she raised her head above the ropes. Papa's black wool jacket flapped like a gull's wings as he crossed the deck. There's a storm coming, Papa said. It could be dangerous. The coast is rocky here, and the wind is getting stronger. Papa lifted Kirsten out of the coiled rope. Then he pulled Marta out, too. Come below where we'll be safe, he said. And here's a picture of the 2 girls sitting in the coiled rope with their dolls. The clouds rolled like water boiling in Mama's black iron pot. The tops of the waves turned white and crashed over the sides of the ship. They dashed onto Kirsten's boots as she scrambled toward the opening into the hold. Hurry, Papa said. He held tightly to Kirsten's and Marta's hands. As Kirsten climbed down the ladder into the hold, her spirit sank. Of course she didn't want to be washed overboard by the waves, but it was awful to stay in this small room below the deck. For more than 2 months, 20 Swedish families have been cramped together here. Each family shared 1 or 2 of the bunks that lined the walls, and everything they owned was stored in large trunks which stood at the ends of the bunks. The air smelled sour now, and it would be worse when people got seasick. No fresh air could come in when the sailors locked the trap door against the waves, and the hold was dark even in the middle of the afternoon. So it's a lot of people in a very small space, and they're on a boat. They're traveling over the ocean. So they're getting seasick, and they're all in this small space together. So that can't be very pleasant for anyone. If you think about it, 20 families If everybody has 4 members in their family, that's 80 people in a small space. Just one oil lantern swung and sputtered over some tables in the middle of the room. Kirsten could barely see Mama, who was lying on her side in the narrow bunk she shared with Kirsten. "Here you are," Mama said as Kirsten crawled up beside her. "I asked Papa to find you. I don't know where you can hide on such a small ship." "Marta and I were playing. We could see land before the storm blew up," Kirsten said. Mama sighed. "I prayed there'd be no more storms so I could be strong when we land in America," she said. She had been sick since the first day they came aboard the ship, and storms made her feel worse. "You'll be strong soon, I'm sure of it. Don't lose heart, Mama," said Kirsten. But now the wind howled like a pack of wolves. The waves beat against the ship's hull next to Kirsten's head, and the ship tossed as though it might tip over. Outside there was a loud crash. Mama put her arm over Kirsten's shoulder. "Don't fall off the bunk," she warned. Buckets tumbled over one another, and old Mr. Peterson's trunk skittered across the wet floor. The lantern swung wildly, then dropped beneath a table. "Mama," Lars said when Mama, Lars says the coast is full of rocks. "Do you think we'll be blown onto them?" Kirsten asked. She could barely hear her own words above the roar of the storm. "Don't think about the rocks," Mama said. "Let's think about Uncle Olav's letter instead. Do you remember your Uncle Olav?" Kirsten heard about Uncle Olav so many times she thought she remembered him. "Tell me," she said. She snuggled close to Mama and tried not to think about the howling storm. "Olav left Sweden 6 years ago when you were just 3, Mama said. He thought he could make a better life in America. And last year he wrote to tell us about his new farm. The land is rich and good there, and he needs our help." "In Minnesota," Kirsten said, stumbling over the strange word. "Yes, in Minnesota," Mama answered. "Now you tell me something." So you can see there they are. They're crammed in a bed. You can see the lantern is swinging, and things are sliding all over. "Uncle Olav married Aunt Inger in America," Kirsten said. She thought this was the best part of the story. "Aunt Inger came from Sweden, too." "That's right," said Mama. "Olav said he married a widow with 2 daughters. My cousins, Anna and Lisbeth," Kirsten finished. "We'll be friends, don't you think?" "Of course," said Mama. "We'll live on the same farm, and they'll be right next door." The waves still pounded against the ship. In the dark hold, Kirsten hugged Zari's ragged body and whispered, "We're almost there. We're almost home." She tried to imagine a farm right next door to her new cousins. She hoped this American home would be just like the one she left in Sweden, with the maple tree by the door. When the storm finally passed, Kirsten felt like the barn cat she'd once fished out of the well. Her skirt and shawl were wet and stained, her boots were soaked. But everyone was safe, the sky was clear, and the eagle was sailing toward the green coast once more. Kirsten watched the seagull swoop and dive as she stood on the deck with Mama and Papa. "I smell the earth again," Papa's voice boomed. He held Peter, who was 5, on his hip. Mama smiled at the shore as though she greeted a friend. She leaned toward Papa, and Kirsten heard her whisper, "So many times I lost hope that we'd all make it to America." "You're a brave woman," Papa answered. "You have heart. I'm proud of you and our children." Kirsten's brother Lars, who was always talking with the sailors, pushed through the crowd just then. "The sailors say we'll land in New York tomorrow morning," Lars said. "That's wonderful," Mama replied. "We'll have fresh bread for breakfast, and I'll find a place to wash our clothes." "They say we can't leave the ship until the health inspector lets us," Lars asked. "What's the health inspector?" Kirsten asked. "He's a doctor who will look at everyone on the ship. No one who is sick can stay in America," Lars explained. "But Mama's sick," Peter cried. He held out his arms and Mama hugged him. "Mama has only been seasick," Papa said in his deep voice. "Almost everyone gets seasick on the ocean. The health inspector looks for illnesses like typhoid and cholera, illnesses that kill people. So they're looking for more serious illnesses. Seasickness is only temporary, and once Mama gets off the boat, she'll be fine." "No one on our ship has cholera," Lars said. "That's right," Papa replied. "You see, Peter, we don't need to worry. Let's see you smile again. Tomorrow we'll be in New York, and then we'll start our journey to Minnesota." When the Eagle finally docked in New York Harbor, and the health inspector said that they could leave the ship, Lars bounded down the gangplank. Peter scrambled right behind him. Mama and Papa went next, then Kirsten. She held Zari tightly. Kirsten was bursting to run and turn circles on the grass she saw near the docks. She was surprised when she stepped off the gangplank and the ground seemed to spin around her. In Sweden, it had been steady under her feet. Here in America, it swayed and rolled like the ship she'd just left. She grabbed Papa's hand. "Why am I so dizzy?" she asked. "We're all used to the rocking of the ship," Papa answered. "Now we have to get used to dry land all over again." For a minute, Kirsten stood still. Then she turned and looked back at the Eagle. When they boarded the small ship, no one had known what to expect. There had been dangerous storms at sea. They had been sick. But at last they had arrived in America. What will happen now, Kirsten wondered. But she was more curious than afraid. On wobbly legs, she followed Mama and Papa up the path into the park near the dock. So that's the end of the first chapter, and Kirsten has made her way to America. So imagine how she must feel in a new land where she doesn't really know anyone. I'm sure it's scary for her, but also maybe a little exciting. So I will see you again when I read you Chapter 2 of Meet Kirsten.